right, welcome back, everybody, to the Game Development Livestream. You are here at episode number 2. You are right here at the beginning. I'd almost call that the penultimate of the beginning episodes. I am John Radoff. I'm the CEO of a company called Beamable. We make game development infrastructure. Before that, I was building games, Game of Thrones, Star Trek. Let's do some super quick intros for the rest of my team. First, my co-host, Paul.
Howdy, I'm Paul. I've been building games since the dawn of time, and currently working on products at King. You may have played some Candy Crush, although in this capacity, my opinions are my own and not my employer's.
Thanks, Paul. And today we've got our special guest, Matt. Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys, I am Matthew Nagy. I am the COO of Triumph Games. We are the makers of Battle Rise, which is basically Dungeons and Dragons on your mobile phone. I've been in computer games for quite a long time. I was the designer of Die Hard Trilogy and Alien Trilogy for PlayStation 1. You know, there's nothing as fun as seeing somebody get the face hugger up on screen, full screen on their face and freaking out. It was so much fun.
All right. Thanks, Matt. And here we've got Oscar as well. Oscar joined us as producer this week after our call for help because I can't do videos and post interesting links to the stream while I'm talking. My brain just doesn't multitask that way. So Oscar, thanks for joining us as our producer this week. It's going to be transformative.
A pleasure as always. Thank you for having.
Yeah. Okay. So a little bit about the Game Development Livestream for people who are listening for the first time. And I'm going to mention this a couple of times during the course of this thing. But first of all, this is an open platform. So you're going to hear me and Paul and Matt and Oscar talking. But this isn't a show that's so much about us talking at you as it's talking with you, which means if you're interested in joining this conversation and you've got a camera, you can join us on stage. We'll send you a link. You can pop in. You don't have to be here for the full hour. You can come in, share your words of wisdom, talk about what you want to cover. The topic is always about the craft and art and science of game development. So we like to talk about design, technology, things like that. It's frankly more the craft than the industry. So we want to really focus on what goes into a great game. What do you need to know as a game developer? What's an idea for a new game? That kind of stuff. But if you want to be part of that conversation, by all means, post a comment, say you're interested in joining us. We will also be watching your comments. We'll post them live on the stream. We'll use them to talk about. But we'll try to get started with a few topics that have come up just in the course of the week. You know, the one that we can't avoid this. I know I promised on the first episode we weren't going to talk about AI in every single episode. And I maintain that promise. We're only on the second episode. But how can we not bring it up after DeepSeek came out just last week and rocked everyone's world? There's some pretty interesting game applications of this. I'm just going to stop there because I have my own thoughts and I don't want to own the whole stage here. But I don't know, Paul, do you want to just share your thoughts? Like AI, we think it's a thing. How does DeepSeek change any of this?
Well, I mean, it radically changes the compute cost, right? So what that actually means until somebody builds a game, it goes to, remains to be seen. But up until very recently, these LLMs and stuff were very expensive to run and even more expensive to create. And so nobody's built a lot of, to purpose build your own game LLM for your special thing costs millions and millions of dollars, right? Yeah, billions, exactly.
Billions.
And so, it's a shift.
Literally
but like with most leading technologies, man, when something new drops, we all get excited about the potential, but until somebody actually builds something, but it certainly seems like a big step change, right?
It was a really interesting thing. And obviously, I mean, you probably saw the stock market was rocked and Nvidia dropped, 20%, and sorry, Dad. And, it's a very interesting thing. I mean, we're building AI for our own games and they just put all this stuff out for free. That's interesting. What does that do for our brand?
And I'm wondering just what were people thinking with the sell-off of NVIDIA? I mean, who knows why stocks move in any direction, but obviously some people thought it was negative. Like they trained DeepSeek on NVIDIA chips, and having an NVIDIA chip means you can run the LLM better. So you think that's like super bullish for like NVIDIA is the one company that no matter what, like they just win all over the place. So what was with that?
It was a weird one. I don't know what people were thinking, but people are sheep when it comes to losing money. Everybody was like, oh God, somebody else is going to sell before me. So, you know, everybody sells. And it's like, oh, but then smart people buy it again because they're like, NVIDIA is going to win. So anyway, this is not financial advice.
Yeah. So you're telling me that the company that's supposedly the leader in building predictive AI systems that can see the future got caught unawares? I mean, like if NVIDIA can't get it right, what hope do the rest of us have?
I'm. You know what I'm sure of? The one thing that NVIDIA was sure of was they knew exactly who was working on LLMs at scale, and they knew that China was working on a bunch of them because DeepSeek wasn't the only one. That like it's not even the cool kid on the block anymore.
What's that one? Quinn? Yeah, Quinn from Alibaba dropped like yesterday.
Oh yeah, well, so you know that was really funny. But could you imagine NVIDIA's AI, you know, going, you know, Hal was the AI. So, but you know what I mean? I'm going, boss, alerts coming in, boss, you better do something. And they're like, why is the AI talking to us? You know, what's it trying to warn us of? Oh, there it is. Okay,
shenanigans.
Yeah.
Let's maybe steer it back to like the application for game developers here, because I think that DeepSeek is interesting if we think of what it means to have things that operate on your own device. So if you think about LLMs in general, obviously there's a lot of approaches to training LLMs, and they have each one has its own advantages, and they're getting more and more advanced. But there's cloud-based LLMs, and if you used DeepSeek on your phone, then you're connecting in the cloud to their cloud-based service. But there's also the open source versions of these. People have installed it on basically their everyday computer, their PC, and they're running it there. That's really interesting if you think about a language model of that power being put on your own device, because now you can run a game that utilizes that locally. And that just opens up the market a whole lot more, because one of the big impediments to any game is if you start attaching cost, meaning cost to you as the game studio, to everything that the game player is doing, then that's going to limit your ability to scale unless you have a really clever business model that makes you more revenue every time someone does that. So in free to play, we have that, like, because you're selling people items all the time to essentially fund your ongoing operations. And surely, of course, there are interesting things you could do with language models there too. But if I want to do, say, a PC adventure game or something that doesn't really have like an in-game economy or whatever, like you probably just want to run this stuff on your own device.
It's really, it really makes your game fragile when you do this, right? You know, like if you're hemorrhaging massive runtime costs, you know, you're literally, you're a bad month away from going out of business, right? You know, if you're, especially if you're a smaller studio and don't have, you know, the deep pockets of the big guys, like it's, the more you layer on those feature added costs, like now it's bad enough having to pay for servers, and now you got to pay for deep GPU enriched servers that cost 10x what the old servers cost. Yeah, it's a scary proposition. Right.
Yeah. You know, interesting. The whole cloud thing I find fascinating. Like one of the we've been partnering with various technology companies, and I know I want to talk to John. I want to talk about Beamable at some point. You know, talk more and deeper. But one of the companies we partner with is Aether. You know, they've got their own AI suite. They've got their own cloud suite. They did a huge node sale, something like 180 million node sale, you know, to help fund them and things like that. But Battle Rise was never intended for the cloud. It was always built as a free-to-play game for mobile specifically. But we were finding that some players in the APAC regions were saying, oh, it doesn't run on my phone, or It doesn't run on my phone, because we had like a minimum spec, and some of the phones, just aren't there yet in some of the APAC regions, not all of them. Well, Aether took a version. I mean, literally, all I did was give them an Android version of the game. I didn't give them deep code or anything. I gave them it, and within 4 days, they gave me back a version that you could run on. It was that all the rendering was in the cloud.
Right. So they basically they containerize the app, and then you ship a portal to the game, basically, or how does
something
that work?
like that, and it loaded like that. And it was so exciting because it was like, oh my God, it doesn't matter what phone you are on. Yeah. Now you're going to be able to play it. That is really, really exciting.
That's cool.
We still have to do it properly. We've got to do like a proper tech dive into their system, and because we need to separate out certain rendering on the cloud and certain rendering local, but for what they did, just in a matter of days, it was so exciting because for me, for us, for Battle Rise, for, getting the game out absolutely as much as we possibly can, to a bigger audience who we don't wind up offending, that's a really big deal to us. And it really helps growth. And, if we can get growth everywhere, as opposed to just in North America or just in Europe, if we can get growth in the Philippines, Indonesia, Latin America, across Africa, despite the phone, that's really, really exciting. Then you throw in AI. Now we got a huge grant from Smart Grant Europe, like $1.2 million grant for AI innovation over the course of 3 years, and we're almost a year in now, and like. Got to sit somewhere. The server's got to be somewhere, so it's like, again, a shout out to our partners at Aether. They've got some really cool cloud services as well that we're able to tap into. But again, it's just exciting times to me. My vision is that one day you'll be able to play it on your smart refrigerator.
Yeah. Aether is a really interesting company. So we're kind of in the third era of the way you access compute on the internet. So in the earliest days, everyone had their own computers. You might have had if you were on long enough, maybe you had a web server in your basement just running, or you had a data center inside your own company. And then people started realizing how expensive that was to scale for a lot of users. So then you got Azure and Amazon and Google entered the business of cloud services. So you could access a company that could essentially give you as many of those computers as you wanted when you needed them, so you didn't have to run it anymore. And then people started finding that can get kind of expensive. So now you're starting to see different approaches to distributing that, which runs everything from people having these networks of bare metal computers that you can access around the world. But Aether is a decentralized network where people can basically add GPUs to their network, and then you can access it to do, it sounds like in your application, it's pixel streaming because and maybe more of an AI application in the future, but you're doing pixel streaming in the cloud because they're running your software in the cloud and then serving it up via pixels, which is cool. I still scratch my head wondering how we can afford to run 2 GPUs for every game that runs, because now I'm running a GPU in the cloud and the GPU on my device, which somehow the math doesn't work in my head, but maybe they're so underutilized part of the time in the cloud that the math does work out. Because the nice thing about it is the immediacy of that experience, nothing to install or download and whatnot. That's been the theory for streaming now for, I don't know, 10, 20 years that people have been talking about.
Yeah,
trying to pull this off. But yeah, there was actually, Oscar, you might be able to find an article from Wall Street Journal on this, because it wasn't Aether, it was about this overall trend towards essentially creating a market for compute, right? Instead of having silos of compute, big piles of millions of servers at Microsoft, for example, like, is there ways to aggregate it together? I mean, this is actually what Beamable is doing. Like, we're taking all the game servers out there, aggregating them into a network, not on the GPU piece, but on the CPU piece of running your online game. But there's a bunch of companies working on different parts of this, and Wall Street Journal just had an article in the last day or two about this new trend that was emerging. Really interesting, because that can change Chain, yeah, there it is. Yeah, so a market for compute. If you think about, like, I think the analogy is to energy. So we have a liquid market for energy today. You can basically buy and sell energy. Compute isn't there yet because it's still kind of proprietary. But what if you could make a liquid market for compute?
I mean, let me poke that for a minute, John. I mean, I feel like I'm usually the last person to bring up crypto, but like, hasn't the crypto experience, hashtag not invested in crypto, but like, but hasn't the crypto experience over the last few years showed us? I mean, isn't that ultimately a distributed compute experiment? Isn't that like the first stage of us sort of doing distributed compute? And couldn't we do a similar? I mean, it seems to me like with the amount of pressure we're putting on data centers, that like I feel like we're like one open source project away for like a federated, open source compute infrastructure, where when I'm not using my computer, it's sitting there farming its GPU or its compute, right? Isn't that not a?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an application of
folding
I'll
at
say
home.
blockchain technology, even more so than crypto specifically. But
there
are companies doing this in a non-crypto way as well. I think
Right.
Wall Street Journal's article talks about other approaches to it. But yes, sure. If we go back to Bitcoin, what is Bitcoin? It's a crypto token essentially that's generated because you do a lot of compute, and today it's a fuckload of compute that you need to do that. And it's just running cryptographic puzzles basically. And then the next wave of blockchain stuff, like Ethereum, came along, which eventually got away from what they called those proof of work algorithms and found different financial incentives to make it so that it was less work. We won't get into all of that right now, but that's sort of how that evolved. But you're right, Paul, which is, if you think about these things like Aether or Beamable or all these different markets for compute, well, you could serve up different kinds of compute, and the token that's generated, essentially the payment that's generated back out of it, is doing something more useful than running a bazillion crypto puzzles. It could run someone's game. It could do pixel streaming. You could train an LLM.
Yeah, it could even stay closed ecosystem. Like if I leave my Xbox on all the time, my Game Pass is free. Basically, you can build closed loop systems. Yeah,
it makes total sense though, because like in England they've got an initiative for people to buy solar panels, right? Put solar panels on your house; it'll take less stress off the national grid, and any energy you don't use will buy back off you for X amount.
Yeah.
So, people who did invest in that, I mean, early days they were paying well, they're not paying as well now, but so that really does make sense. One thing we have been considering, I think we're going to do a traditional TGE, but prior to that, towards the end of the year, we were talking about nodes. So because the game would Battle Rise and our other game that's coming up called Armor X, both games would benefit from there being thousands of little mini CPU, GPU, little things out there, in other people's homes. They're effectively the people who are running the node. They're generating a bit of token for themselves, but they're also generating token that goes into the ecosystem for the players to find within the game. But we were like, but look, we shouldn't just do this as nodes. This shouldn't just be about token. What if we coded all of the little CPUs that we're sending out to people, all the hardware we send out to people, what if we coded them as server relays? And one thing that we have coming in Battle Rise, which I absolutely adore, later in the year, in 2025, we're going to do an NFT sale called the Dungeon Builder NFT set. Okay. And people will buy a little set of NFTs that basically they can make their own dungeon with their set of NFTs, and the treasure, the artifacts that you find within that they put into their dungeon for you to find. You beat the enemies and you find that you get a random draw of any NFT from the game, but you've also got a chance to get the legendary NFT that is unique to that person's collection. Well, what if we added in addition that person actually hosted it on their own little CPU. So they were their own mini server in their home. And because the concept is that we've got various dungeons in the game with a little storyline that we have. But what if people, again, now we're going back to AI, apologies if we're trying to stay away from it, but
we're doing AI, NFT, we're like just going with all the crazy ideas right now.
So we're going to harness
VR next, I promise.
We're going to harness all the AI that we're building to allow the person not just to build a dungeon, but to allow the person to create a story with prompts, you know, and the RLLM will kind of put, you know, how about this? What about this? And what language do you want it? Do you want it dark? Do you want it scary? You want it emotional? Right? And then a narrator to be the dungeon master to convey the story to the person. So people will pay a little bit of our token to the creator of the dungeon because they want to try a chance to get that legendary artifact. But if that person is also hosting it on their own little server at home, and so they're farming token for themselves, they're hosting the dungeon on their server node, and they're putting our token into the ecosystem for people to find. So, like, you know, this is where it gets.
It's
really
kind of it's a gamified way to mine a token, which is interesting. Okay, so we did AI. We talked about crypto. I blame this guy Paul here for bringing us down that path.
You're good. We're supposed to talk Web 2,
okay.
aren't we? Yeah,
it's okay. We can talk. That's part of gaming. It's kind of at the very bleeding edge, and we can talk about any of those topics. All right, so we're on bleeding edge. Like maybe talk about VR again. Oscar, you were pointing out an article. I always laugh at these updates on Meta's financials, where they're always like, here's basically the article is Meta's just taking over the world. Look how profitable it is, except Zuckerberg doesn't seem to know anything about VR because he just keeps throwing money down the toilet on this thing. So this is always the headline, right? It's like, Reality Labs just keeps losing money.
Well, how dare you invest in the future?
They're also the biggest platform out there that you can actually use for VR. And it's not like the tens of millions of users on Quest are an insignificant number anymore. Like that compares with a decent game console.
Yeah, and it's just waiting for software releases. I mean, I almost bought a Meta the other day because I saw the release of, I think it's Revolution Games. Demio was a big popular game early on. They're releasing essentially a pure up Dungeons and Dragons game based on their stuff, and so they've partnered with Wizards of the Coast. And I'm like, that's the kind of app that causes me to buy hardware, right? It's like, okay, I guess I need a Meta 3 or whatever the version is that we're on, because it's been a few years since I got me an HMD, so because I'm damn sure buying whatever hardware it takes causes me to run Dungeons and Dragons virtual reality. That's the killer app, right?
Maybe Battle Rise go that direction, man. It, like, I would love Battle Rise to go on console. I'd love it to go on VR. I think it'd be really fun. We don't have co-op in the game yet, but when co-op's in, it's Dungeons and Dragons. You need a team of friends to go through the dungeon. Because you, like, at the moment, it's like you build a team of 5 and you go into the dungeon. So it'd be so much fun if each champion was one of your friends. Now add in the VR and have them experience like being in the dungeon. I mean, this is like LARPing on another level.
Man.
What Demio did really well, though, first of all, if you've got a Quest and you haven't tried Demio, you should just go download. You can download it for free and try the first stuff. You don't even have to pay anything, I believe. At least it was that way when I tried it. But immersively experiencing the dungeon, cool idea. That's kind of been what we've been talking about in VR for years. But here's what Demio did well. So pretty much every week from the age of, I'm going to say 10 years old till I was 18-ish years old, I played D&D typically once a week, if not more.
I reckon we're the same age, John.
Well, we won't get into that. And then typically in a basement location, either my basement or a friend's basement. It just seems like where it always was, because it's the only place your family would put up with you doing that for like 6 or 8 hours. And you play D&D there. And Demio, when you first interact with it, it recreates that gaming room, much nicer gaming room than I had as a kid, but still reminiscent of it. And you're in a place, and it captures that idea of being with friends around the gaming table, and it does that really, really well. Like, you have this nostalgic feeling the second you do it, and you feel like you're back in the gaming room as a kid again, and I love that.
That's so fun. That's really fun. Yeah. I think we're gonna have to look into this for ourselves for sure. Yeah.
I think the reason that Meta is losing money here is that it's just really hard to get people to. It's one thing to get people to play games where they're at, meet them where they're at. It's a completely another to get them to buy a special piece of hardware and to go into a room. I mean, we've had specialty consoles and specialty devices as far back as there have been video games, and they've always, with a few rare exceptions, always been very niche prospects, right? And I mean, we've been struggling with this VR thing since the 1980s. And the reality is that it's just, I mean, and I've had how many countless conversations about, the use case of slapping a thing on your face. Like, I'm a biggest sucker. I'm a huge sucker for it. Like, I love it. But I mean, even when you have the gear, I mean, obviously there's some people that are completely committed to it, and I respect that. But I don't know, man. Like, games have to meet me where I'm at, unless there's a killer app that's so amazing it draws me to that. So I don't know. I don't know that Meta is ever going to see their reality. I kind of respect what Apple has done. Frankly, they built a specialty device for those specialty people, and they're sort of walking it slowly in. Like, I think the Apple strategy might be better than the Meta strategy. I don't. Who's buying these Metas?
No one has the right perspective on any of these devices. I have
That's the right perspective. There you are.
Well, so I don't know, something about the gaming media generally and VR. I'm just going to say, even though VR isn't just games, it sort of covers a lot of the same space of like journalists who cover this stuff.
Yeah,
it's rare to see a media that they just savor the ability to craft the biting critique here.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, look at this headline: Meta's speculative reality labs division continues to excel, losing billions. So
wow.
Mr. Zuckerberg, if you look at this, by the way, we'd like to thank you for this investment. Let me retitle that. It's more like, Meta's long-range pioneering vision for VR requires an investment of billions, because it's also not just the content.
Meta's investment in the next stage of human experience is costing a bit money. It's a good thing they've got enough to burn.
It's good they've got more than enough. Right?
All the consoles cost a lot of money to build.
Yeah, exactly.
Sony spent millions building the various PlayStations. Nintendo spent millions, and Microsoft. The funny thing about the VR, we have two. In fact, we got one, and then my daughter wanted one. She used her Christmas money. She got her own, and the games that they really liked, the ones that were only really playable in the VR. Like the Beat Saber and things like that. The ones where you got the lightsaber and you kind of, moving them around, your arms around, things like that, But the one thing, and this was the same for the Wii to some extent, for like the Wii exercise, that remember the Wii mat, the Wii thing.
I was literally,
The thing is that part of gaming is engaging your imagination and being absorbed in a world or story that is only partly conveyed by the game. Your brain is filling in the rest. Your brain is not distinguishing reality from from the visuals and the audio.
Suspension of disbelief. Yeah.
Okay, you're in there. Your brain is filling the rest in. This is why one of our competitor, not really our competitor, but Raid Shadow Legends came out a year and a half before Battle Rise came out, and they absolutely captured the audience. And they had a much larger budget than us, and their video adverts are beautiful, right? We're like, we don't have that kind of budget. We can't compete with that. We're going to do comic book style adverts instead of trying to do this full rendered motion video. But the point is that the rendered motion video sets this paradigm within your imagination, so that when you go into their game and play their game, you're living it as realistic as the advert was, when in fact the models on screen are not those million poly models that are used and rendered. Okay, so
Totally.
so the
Totally.
FMV sets that. You know what I mean?
Oh
So-
yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
I mean, the age old conversation about fidelity versus the quality of the gameplay, and where does the immersion come from? Does it come from the fidelity of the present?
I totally agree with you. I
Yeah,
yell, they had to start putting not actual gameplay footage on adverts on TV as a result of that exact thing, right? But where I'm going with it is that part of being a gamer is losing yourself. It's escape. It's escape into a fantasy world. Whether you're in, World War I soldier, or you're in the future of sci-fi, or in the past fantasy, or, even a casual, my Facebook joke is, oh, Facebook, all this was once farmland, This farm bill was so popular, but it was popular.
Sorry about that.
Because like they use the imagination. So the issue that I have with VR, that was very funny. The issue that I have with VR is that you have to stand up in the room and you have to do the stuff, and it's tiring. I don't want to move my arms for 3.5 minutes straight for Beat Saber. Like I'm terrible at it. I'm not out of weight. I'm not overweight. I'm not out of shape. I mean, maybe I'm a little overweight. Maybe I'm a little out of shape. But I'm tired after 3-minute song. Right, I don't want to.
Definitely, consoles figured out that this is the form factor for playing your game.
I think that's a very funny thing. Although there are some games that are great, right? Like the old Myst games. That was so perfect for VR.
Yeah, definitely the mental bandwidth consumed by VR plus the number of calories consumed is a little bit high on VR still. I think it's getting better though. But that relates back to sort of this whole meta headline again though. And by the way, the suckiest headline would be something like Meta terminates its long-term vision to preserve more of its advertising profits. That would be that's almost what they're asking to happen by saying that by this criticism. But it does. So we should look at how multidimensional the problem of making good VR is. So first of all, the hardware itself, getting long battery life in a lightweight device that sits on your head, that works with your body and your eyes, that is a really, really hard problem. We're still actually not that close to the ideal weight of these things, because the ideal weight is like sunglasses. They have actually done studies on this, and they found that until you get to sunglasses, people are just going to complain about the fatigue forever until it's at that weight. And that's why the long-term vision, in fact, is to have something that's like smart glasses as opposed to the bulkier VR device. Incredibly hard engineering and even basic science. You're in the realm of really basic fundamental physics exploration, materials science, things like that, battery technology to be able to get anywhere close to that. And then, but it doesn't end at the hardware. It's the software. The operating system has to be rethought. It's artificial intelligence. It's training for gesture recognition. All of these things have to come together to build these devices.
Totally.
Yeah. But
hey, John.
Maybe that's where the cloud comes in, and cloud compute services, let's
tie it all together.
That's how you get it in the sunglasses. I mean, in England, Sky TV has been for years. It's been a satellite signal to a literal box that looks kind of like an Xbox or a DVD player that sits under, that takes it and it translates it. But now it's, you know, it got bigger because now it's got hard drives, and now you can download movies and you can save this on your local, right? They're moving away from that completely to this lovely thin smart TV. So now instead of buying the thing, now you buy their TV that has the technology built into it, and it's like thin. You can hang it on, you know, hang it on the wall, hang it on the mantelpiece, you know, and you can display art on it. You can pretend you've got a Picasso in your living room, you know.
I want to talk about. I wanted to add smart TV to this whole thought process. We've been talking about the edge, but before I do that, I'll remind John it's the bottom of the hour, and you need to do your spiel.
Let's do the station identification again. So here's the thing with this chat. We've talked about VR. We talked about crypto, even though I didn't think we were going to. We talked about distributed compute. We've talked about AI. We want to talk about any topic that could affect game development, but this is for game developers, people who design, build games, want to make really creative games. It's not so much about the industry and commercial metrics and things like that. It's about the craft and creativity. And this is your opportunity to participate as well. There's basically two ways you can participate in this, because it's not just us talking with or each other or at you. It's inviting you into this conversation. So number one, our intrepid producer, Oscar, is monitoring all of the comment channels here. If you post on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, YouTube, any of the places where we're broadcasting this, we're looking at those comments. If you comment, we may in fact flash that on the screen and start talking about your comment. You can go to the next level though. You could actually join this talk. So message us, post in the comments that you want to jump into. There you go, Oscar. Thank you. This is what having a producer means this week. This is just transformative.
And
you could join the chat.
Prepared.
Yeah, Oscar will DM you a StreamYard link. You can jump on the stage. You can be part of the conversation. If you didn't like any of the things we were just talking about, bring your own topic. We'll talk about that instead. Or if you want to call back to something earlier, you think we missed something, and especially if you think we were wrong, like I would love that. Come tell us how we're absolutely insane. Like VR should just be shut down at Meta to save the world. Like, hey, we want to hear your reason for that. I think that could be an interesting conversation. So do take part. I think we're about at the max viewers we had from last time. So we're working to get to an even bigger number than last time. So the audience is bigger. You're out there. Post a comment. Join the conversation.
And let us know what you want us to fight about. So what I was gonna say, like I got a new TV. I moved house earlier this year, and I guess I said this year, earlier in 2024. And yeah, the new smart TV, which I've always sort of avoided because I didn't want a TV that was going to monitor my life. You know, but at the same time, like I was really impressed. I tried. Let's try to see if all these crappy little apps that are in my smart TV are actually worth anything. And the thing that unlocked it was it came with the NVIDIA cloud gaming solution built right into the TV, right? Shockingly good. I don't know. This cloud streaming, I mean, we talk about a lot of almost there technologies, whether it's here or everywhere else. And, you know, we talk a lot about, in theory, we'll get to do this someday. But the cloud thing has been there like for forever. And it's mostly, it feels like we're always told it isn't on the top of everyone's mind because of bandwidth. Yeah.
It is interesting, Paul, because for years and years, it was sort of almost the running joke in the industry. Like, here's another streaming platform that's going to go out of business. And you know, when Stadia imploded, everyone was like, okay, if Google couldn't pull it off, nobody can. This is just not, it just does, the numbers don't work or something.
But the tech demonstrably works. The tech demonstrably works. Yeah.
The question, Paul, is does it work I guess one question is, does it work outside of the most networked kind of dense urban areas? Sure. Who knows what's going on with the numbers behind the scenes, but yes, you can sign up with what you were just saying, or PlayStation. I've used their streamed games. They work perfectly fine. Like, so So it's a thing. It's almost like, as we've been critiquing these new efforts to build cloud streaming tech and they failed, slowly, like, I don't know, Sony and other companies like that were just kind of like quietly figuring it out. I don't know why in every article that was about Stadia, for example, they weren't just saying, well, I don't know, Sony's works fine. Like, you could just do that too.
Very, very funny.
I feel like the battle is always over the content side of things. I feel like Stadia's struggle is more on the content side than does the tech work, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I always heard people bringing up bandwidth, and you know, it seems like today, when everyone's able to stream Netflix at 4K, you know, it's like bandwidth is still an issue for worldwide adoption, but I really felt it would be, you know, it should be more. I was a big Stadia advocate, and I really hated seeing that take a nosedive the way it did.
Yeah, same.
Chris Molina is posting about his project he worked on, which is Asgard's Wrath 2. Like, hell yeah, that's great. Like, Asgard's Wrath is a fantastic game. I've played it.
Well, I mean, that's part of the problem with these. What we were just saying, all of the less. If you're not one of the marquee platforms, i.e., console/PC, then what's the hardest part about? I mean, we got a bunch of game makers here. What's the hardest part about games? They ain't making the games. It's about user acquisition, right? User acquisition is the friggin' that costs more. That's everything these days, right?
18,000 games on Steam last year. That's kind of the problem.
Yeah. So
there's too many people that want to make a game.
So how does a kick-ass game experience that doesn't have the you know, literally tens of millions of dollars of marketing behind it get in front of people? Like, it's a you gotta work, you gotta hustle. Like, it's like a, you know, it's hard work.
You know, you like the landscape for advertising for games, you know, KOLs and you know, you're hoping game goes viral. You know, you're doing your best to convince Apple to make it game of the month, or, you know, otherwise you have to rely on actual sales in order to chart, in order to get, you know, so, oh my God, it really is all over the place. But, you know, for us, user acquisition is everything at the moment, because we think we have a fun game, and we think everybody who plays it will enjoy it. You know, if Dungeons and Dragons, if it's in your blood, we know you're gonna like it, you know. So anyway, user acquisition is big, but maybe that's where smart TV could really excel, because, like, if Battle Rise, when we finish getting Battle Rise properly into the cloud, you know, we could approach the Sonys, Samsungs, all the TV manufacturers, everybody who's got, you know, embedded apps, and we could say, look, a game's in the cloud. It's not even going to be on the TV, and all your TVs are connected to the internet now. So please, you know, get us on there, you know, and take 15% of the revenue, you know, that comes from that particular, which would be a savings of half from Apple and Google, of course, you know. So, you know, it's but like that might, you know, that'd be real, because everybody's got a TV.
I wonder if people really realize. I mean, I know people, we hear about it in the news a lot, but I don't think most people think about the fact that when they buy something, you know, literally a third all goes to the overlords.
You know, a third of it, you know. Somebody's commented, Marty Kaplan's commented, you got to have the UI built into the core game loop.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So, like, you know, one thing the Battle Rise is doing is that we're rewarding players who refer, and the referees come in, you know. So, you know, we're giving in-game assets for referrals, you know. So we're trying to get our own people to do it. Yeah. So, you know, Gen Z, Gen A kids pull their friends into games on every platform. Yeah, exactly. My kids said, this is so funny. I said, you know, you guys are online all the time. That, you know, it was years ago when they were teenagers. You're online all the time. You know, why don't you arrange to meet your friends? Go out to town and meet your friends. They said, oh, Dad, you don't have to do that anymore. We could just meet online.
You know, I have cognitive dissonance on this idea of the UA and the core game loop. First of all, I totally get it. Most of the game units I've shipped in my entire life are mobile games, and we tried to do that at every opportunity, and for good business reasons, for the exact rationale we just discussed, which is direct UA via paying for ads is so damn expensive. It really puts a dent in your profitability. It may make you not profitable at all. So anything you can do that makes that happen organically or through word of mouth or through some kind of clever bring me a nail to build the farm would be the classic example from when Paul was doing that at Zynga. That would be a way to do it. But like, there's other ways to build UA into the core game loop, namely make it such a great game that everyone wants to talk about it all the time.
Totally, John, totally.
Baldur's Gate 3, my favorite game of all time at this point, is just such a great game. I wanted to tell everybody about the stories I was living in that game. And I haven't looked at any previews yet, but I know the new Civ is coming out imminently. And I'm hoping that it'll be the kind of game where I'm just going to annoy everyone with how much I'm going to talk about it. Nice. And that's your user acquisition right there, right?
I want to do exactly that. First of all, amen to what Todd Harris's code is up here. Who has played Dragon Sweeper yet? Has everybody here played Dragon Sweeper? This is the kind of content our show.
I haven't.
Okay, well, so this is the hotness. Like,
Oscar, bring on some Dragon Sweeper.
Bring up Dragon Sweeper. like this is the kind of organic because this is the one person UA indie dev that needs to be. So this is what all the cool kids are playing this week. It's not so. Who likes Minesweeper? Who likes Dungeons and Dragons? So this is a 2-hour game. You'll finish it, and it's not a big game, but oh my god, this will change your life.
Looking for it right now.
It's on
and let's celebrate the game that has 2 or 3 or 4 hours of gameplay too. Like, don't get me wrong, I played Baldur's Gate. I'm going to guess I got about 300 hours of gameplay out of that game before I put it down. Yeah. If they ever came up with an expansion, which I understand they're not, they'd give me another 300. But it's fine to make a game that only has a few hours of gameplay in it that you just love and it sticks with you. Like, I play games like that.
No, here, just pull up the actual game. Here it is. Like, I send you a link, Oscar.
Yeah, my kids got into The Binding of Isaac.
Oh yeah, that's a great game.
Yeah. But he's now 21. He's been playing it since he was 15, and he's almost 100%ed it. He's got one more task to do, and then he says he can put it down. I'm like, I've been playing it for 6 years, but I can't. He got it from me a tiny bit. This looks fun. He got it from me a tiny bit. I managed 100% Tears of the Kingdom. I had to put a lot of time in it, and my goodness, the songs I didn't write, the books I haven't written, Tears of the Kingdom. So as long as it was, oh no, you found the dragon. That's fun.
So you got to be high enough level to kill the thing. Look at the bottom. So scroll down. I'll do that. It's Minesweeper, but you level up. See at the bottom, you got to level up and you got health, right? And so click on one of those blue dots.
Was this game made with ChatGPT?
I don't know. It could have been, but it's got too much skill and necessity. This game is awesome. So anyway, it's just
that's not a criticism, by the way. I'm like, I bet you.
Now click on your guy. Now click on the guy. See his pulsing at the bottom. And now see he levels up, and so you get experience points, and now he has more health, and he can click on bigger and bigger. It's multi-tiered Minesweeper. All right, we don't have to spend all day talking about this game. I'm just like, I played a super fun game. Everybody who plays it loves it, and now I'm doing my part for user acquisition. Play this game, everybody.
They will appreciate you.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to Civ. I mean, we can be game
for sure
fans as well as game makers. I'm looking forward to Civ. What other games is the panel here looking forward
what's the
to
midnight? What's that Louisiana sort of steampunky game that we saw at the Microsoft Game Days last year? It's does it come out this year? Does everybody know what I'm talking about?
No, tell us, Paul.
I don't know. I mean, I got caught on the spot. It was
we'll come back to you, Paul.
Yeah, come back later.
We'll come back. We'll figure it out.
That's funny. Did somebody
put it Matt, what are you looking forward to?
What am I looking forward to? Oh, it's really funny. I play games that are Dungeons and Dragons-esque, but I'm such a huge Zelda fan. I always go back to Zelda. I'm always waiting for the next one. And so I'm actually about 3 hours into the new cute one where you actually get to play Zelda for the first time. And I'm really enjoying it, so I'm not looking for anything else at the moment. I'm committed to Zelda for a while, I'm not looking for anything casual, I am also looking forward to, and this is, oddly very self-serving, but I'm looking forward to some of the new game modes that the guys are doing for our own game. Like we've got Dungeon Crawler at the moment. We've got live PvP, and we've got the story mode is coming back. We pulled it out because we thought the story was a little trite, and we wanted to beef it up. And we got an actual, he found it, right? Okay. We got a famous author in Poland because the team are in Poland, to write a new narrative. But I'm looking forward to this new mode. It's dragging, but we're almost there, which we call Gauntlet. And Gauntlet basically takes our Dungeon Crawler and it takes our PvP code and it adds a bit of co-op. So for the first, if you're a Dungeon Dragon player ever, it's about the party and the Dungeon Master, right? So I'm really looking forward to Gauntlet mode because I'm looking forward to people being able to jump in and play together against another team who get to play the bad guys. Right. And it's in speed battle mode. Right. So it's a really fast experience. I am really looking forward to that. But yeah, I can't say what else I'm looking forward to because between our own game and me getting the new Zelda where you get to play Zelda, I've stopped looking at the moment.
Well, Matt, that's a good lesson for game developers. It's surprising how many teams actually they're working on a game, but they don't really play their game. So that's a very negative sign in my experience when that's going on. And it happens more than you'd think.
Yeah, you have to love it. Although having said that, sometimes you've seen your own game for so long that it doesn't look real anymore. When we were doing Batman and Robin for the PlayStation 1, and we did crazy things, we streamed miles of Gotham City data off the hard drive in order to be able, at the highest speed of the vehicle moving. We did it years before Grand Theft Auto were doing it, and but we developed it for 2.5 years, and year one we're like, yay, and we finally got to play. We're like, oh, this is awesome. But honestly, by the end, I went to GDC or no, it was E3 at the time. I went to E3. I saw my game on a screen alongside 4 other games that Acclaim Studio were bringing. My game didn't look real to me. So you do get burnout when you're making a game and it takes too long.
Oh, yeah.
So fair enough.
That could be we could get a future topic. I've got all sorts of great burnout stories. I've burned out many times in my career.
So you got
next week burning out in the game industry.
Yeah,
our topic. Okay, yeah.
How to cope with it.
But that's
you get a lot of people who would be sympathetic.
Isn't that
everyone's going to participate in that one?
Though? Because you get bored of what you're building. Like, I plan to build this and I'm almost done building it, but I'm so bored of looking at it. You know what would be cool if Robin was able to do X, Y, and Z, and if Batgirl could, like all of a sudden we need to add another 6 months of development. It's like, no, God, no, put it in a box,
Put it in a box, get it out.
Feature creep.
All right. I'm gonna tee up one more topic on our last few minutes here, and maybe it's one that'll even continue into next time. I'm gonna try to bring together a few different things we talked about. So much earlier on, we were talking about AI and decentralizing it, moving it to individual devices. Why? Because it could save the cost of cloud computing, run it on the game locally. We talked about this whole new market of distributed computation to lower the cost of cloud computing. But we also brought up topics like user acquisition and how expensive that can be to drive games. So there's all these cost centers in games. We haven't talked about game engines. Like, game engines have kind of been, we're in the new era of the game engine war. And I guess first of all, like, I'd love most of my experiences with Unity and Unreal, and I love both of them for different reasons, frankly.
Yeah.
But Godot has been getting a lot of action the last couple of years because that's the open source engine, and I guess the question is, that can be like the next Blender. Is that gonna start displacing the more commercial engines as people just get the open source alternative? What does everyone think? That's a narrative that exists. I'm not sure I have an opinion. I have seen a lot of people moving to Godot though, so there is something happening there.
I was around when renderware arrived. When renderware first came, people like middleware would never catch on. It'll never catch on. And renderware were like, oh, it's not quite catching on as fast as our finances need it to be. So let's make our own game. And then they made a fantastic game with their own technology, and everybody stepped up and went, oh, this actually is interesting. Because everybody was building their own engine, everybody, so I'm a big believer in middleware adoption. We are using Unity for Battle Rise. We're using Unreal for our other title, which is called Armor X. And so we were using Unity, and then we were using it when that new guy came in and shook everything up and said everyone's going to have to pay a lot more for it now, and everybody went, F you, we'll go over to Unreal. So and then the guy got fired. But I'm a huge but I haven't used the Godot one. I've been waiting for Godot, but I haven't used it yet. It'd be interesting. I want to check it out.
I mean, Godot's pretty great. I've looked at it pretty closely for my own projects, and I think it's pretty robust. I don't think I could make a convincing argument to build a I guess I want to say there are a lot of different scales of games, right? And I tend to work on what I would call skyscraper games, very large teams, very large outlays. And I don't think Godot is necessarily ready for prime time. I don't know anybody that's building a skyscraper game that's using Godot, which is, for those of you that out there that are big Godot fans, that's not a slight on Godot. Like it might just be it hasn't had its chance yet, right? It looks super accessible, and I bet a lot of people are going to, in the very near future, and some people already have, make their first indie game, even their breakthrough game in that engine. Like I think it's a credible game engine to be building your indie title, right? And it may have more potential behind it, right?
I mean, commercial games, or games that have made decent amount of money have shipped off like RPG Maker or Game Maker. So of course, Godot is perfectly fine for many types of games that you want to build, and it's only going to have more and more capabilities over time. And if you are a C# programmer, which you are, if you've been doing Unity, then you have a really short path into Godot. So kind of easy onboarding process for you there. So definitely worth checking out. We haven't announced anything or made decisions on this yet because we've got a million priorities at Beamable, but like Godot would probably be the next SDK that we would support after the Unity and Unreal. But
having Beamable behind Godot would just be that much more what I was saying. Like the things that keep me back from Godot are just the plumbing, right? I have to write. Writing the gameplay logic is not the hard part. The hard part is all the stuff that Beamable offers. That's why you offer it, right?
There's a really nice looking.
I almost want to say if we get 1,000 shares on this video, then Beamable will put it out. Godot SDK.
I just did a quick search, and there's a really nice looking game. I don't know how skyscraper it is, but it's called Halls of Torment. Built on Godot. It looks nice.
Oh, I'm in one of my many YouTube channels. I get a YouTube channel video every few weeks. Maybe it's once a month. That it's like 5 great games that shipped this month on Godot, right? And there's some real baller games that are coming out on it. But there's between looking good and actually operationalizing a game is there's miles between those things, right? So just because the game looks good or is fun is important to be those things, but is it a successful business? Unfortunately, is also a thing, or maybe fortunately, because that's how I pay for my rent. But
Marty makes a good point here about Marty makes a great point here about WebGPU. Like, I'm a big fan of WebGPU. It's not quite all the way there yet, particularly in terms of game engines just being able to just really ship. But it is a really great technology that could completely reshape distribution models. This is something I've written about on my blog. We'll have to talk about that next week. We should actually return to the game engine conversation, because what could be more core to game developers than the actual engine you build your game on, and WebGPU, and we could even talk about UEFN and Roblox and all the other ways you could be building games. Great topic for next week, but we've used up an hour, and this is an hour show. And here's an exciting metric that I can share. We hit peak viewers of 105. So that's a little bit higher than last time. Yeah, we probably had a few hundred come on through. So really grateful to everybody who decided it was worth anywhere from a few seconds to an hour of your day to join us and be part of this conversation. Next time, I'd love to invite you to join the stage too. Like, let us know, let Oscar know, let me know, let Paul know that you'd love to join in. That's what Matt did this week. And Matt, you're welcome back here anytime to talk with us about this stuff. And we'd love to welcome you from the audience as well. But this is what it's all about, talking about game development for game developers, the craft, the science, the art of it. Just super happy that we were able to pull this off again. We'll return every week. 1 p.m. Eastern time on Thursdays is when we're going to talk about all this stuff. And sounds like we'll be covering a little bit more game engine conversation, maybe some web GPU next week. And whatever the latest AI LLM
the news of the week,
the world over. We'll mention that too for sure. But thanks everybody. Thanks Paul. Thanks Matt. Thanks Oscar for joining in on this.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Great to
Bye.
join you guys. Dead peas.